Hi, Jeff here, and we're on another Q&A. I'm in the garden, and there's a bit of a rough team here knocking bamboo edges in and all kinds of stuff. Surplus of energy. People come in here, they want to work, they want to get information, they want to learn as they kind of volunteer and try and do the right thing for us. Anyway, the question is from Mate, or Marti, and what I can't, hopefully I've got that pronounced right. What does it mean to have enough surplus to maintain and replace the system over its lifetime? If the system is a closed loop system where nothing is lost except water and the sun's heat, which are replaced naturally, we will never get more than comes in, right? No, you can get more because things keep breeding and producing more babies than they need and more seeds than they need. Every tree produces massive amounts of seed. If you propagate them all, you get a lot more trees and all kinds of other things. And you get surplus animals too, and all those living systems. So you do get more. Are we simply forcing the rest of the system to also bear the weight of myself as a human manager of the system? Or does this diverse and balanced system need to produce even surplus in spite of being a closed loop system? It doesn't need to produce surplus, but it does. Natural systems produce surplus, and they're actually accumulated in soil fertility and soil creation. So a natural system banks its surplus once it gets to an enormous abundant diversity. So natural systems build their diversity and their interactivity between the diverse components, and then you get to a pretty well stable mass. They continue to get a little bit more diverse over time, but they bank in the soils. That's the base resource. So when Jeff says you need to link up to living systems to create surplus, does he mean linking up in some special way? No, just the natural way. Nothing special, just the way the natural world works, exactly the way ecosystems work, except you're aligning systems together with components that wouldn't necessarily happen naturally, but they function exactly like a natural system. You've just assembled components from all over the world. Because today we can assemble 800 times more diversity than we could in the Middle Ages. That's what's available to us, which is really optimistic. And we can assemble that in a set of components that functions exactly as a natural ecosystem, but it's an assembly of components that are convenient to us and create that surplus to our needs. If we want it, we don't have to have it. You can just lay on a baseline and say, I'm never going to produce more than I need, and everything's going to feed back into the system. Remember that we said every component needs, you need to design every component's needs to come from the system and all their products to be used by the system. So if you don't want to trade or sell surplus or exchange surplus off-site, you can simply feed it back to the system. At the very least, it will create soil. So wouldn't I still have to bring in unsustainable inputs if I'm trading part of the surplus as outputs? Not necessarily, because the sunlight continuously gives you the living system components to thrive as long as you've got the design right. Now, everything that we're involved with as a living system potentially creates a surplus to replicate itself. We just have to put in little management processes. Often they're very, very simple, very basic. We've got surplus bamboo here. My wife's knocking in a bamboo peg to border a garden. Boy, do we have surplus bamboo. A ridiculous amount. We have 28 varieties of bamboo. It's used for all kinds of purposes. We can never use it all. The system can use it. It will create great soil. It will go down. We can burn it if we want to. We can biochar it. There's all kinds of things we can do. We can eat all of it as shoots. We can build with it. It's easier to say what you can't do with bamboo than what you can. But that's just one component in thousands and thousands of components that are out here. Yeah, you can bring in some unsustainable components, but you can compensate it by all the living systems that you put in. You know, small amount of unsustainable stuff coming in, but massive amount of creation and surplus that you've facilitated by design. Design is a facilitation. You don't create anything, but you design to facilitate an amazingly creative, abundant event. And that's where the surplus comes in. And it's great stuff. It's very, very entertaining. Bill used to say it's much more entertaining than playing chess and a lot more complicated.